Recording in progress.
Well, good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting, February 3rd, 2025. Roll call, please.
Luther,
Here.
Crow,
Here.
Sutherland,
Here.
Yanko, here, McCullough, Schwebs,
Here.
Gentz, Solberg,
Here.
Schlew,
Here.
Erdman,
Here.
Sommerfeld.
Here. Well, great. Tonight, if we could have a motion to approve the minutes, that would be our first piece of business. So if anybody would like to make that motion, Ryland, go ahead, please.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second, Randy?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. No public comment or under public comments tonight. This is a portion of our meeting where anybody can speak for 3 minutes or less on agenda items for the evening. We would ask that you come to the podium, give us your name and address, and do sign in. So under public comments, if anybody would like to speak, now is your opportunity to do so. So come on forward. Public comments is now open. And you have to push the button down on the microphone too, please. And talk loud.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. So you need your name and your address.
Okay.
And-
My name is Guillermo Mendez, and I live at 2904 Wilson Street here in Menomonie. And I came to apply for my liquor license. And
Okay. So are you going to be here during the meeting if we have any questions for you?
yes,
Okay.
I'm gonna stay here.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you for being here tonight, Guillermo. Okay, anybody else like to come speak in public comments? Now is your opportunity to do so. Last call for public comments. Okay, we'll close public comments and move on with the rest of our business. Under 4A, new business, Police Department Space Needs Study presentation. It's a discussion only tonight. There's been a study done for the space needs. And I'm going to just turn this over to Eric, who's going to probably turn it over to some of the other speakers in the house. So Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So recently, the city council had passed ARPA funds or allowed for ARPA funds to be spent on a space needs study for the police department that was requested by Chief Hollister, and he is also in the audience here tonight. So through that process, the BKV group was selected to do that space needs study. And tonight we have here Paul Michel from the BKV group, who's going to go over some of the information on his findings for that space needs study. This is for informational purposes only, and no action is needed at this time. Mr. Michel, welcome to the City Council in the City of Menomonie.
Thank you. It's good to be back in Menomonie. I'll wait for the presentation to go up here. We've been working with the police department for a few months now. And just a little bit of background, I know this information was given, but I've been doing public safety architecture with focus on police and law enforcement for over 25 years now. It's a passion of mine. I really enjoy working with our first responders and helping them do their best work through hopefully improved facilities. So as we move on down here, and I'll say BKV Group also has been doing this work for 45 years. So we've got a portfolio of over 200 police projects. This is one of our core parts of our business. So we've been working, like I said, with the police department for several months now. This is an in-depth process. You can scroll just a little farther. So we're going to go through the project process, and the process will regurgitate a little bit of the agenda, but we're going to be talking through site location. We did an operational assessment of the existing facility. We'll talk a little bit about our findings there. We're going to look at the determination of what space needs were identified, a little bit of sort of master planning or what we'll call a test fits, just to sort of proof of concept of what a new facility might look like on a piece of ground. Not a full design, not rendered views, but just basically proving out how much land is needed to successfully develop a project. We did some cost estimating informed by our history, but also checking the local market. And then we'll talk a little bit about recommendations and next steps. So looking at the project process, you keep on going here through the divider. So what we've done so far is one of the first things we did was tour your facility and look at that operational assessment. This was about a day-long process we spent with the police department. We took a look at their existing facility as it relates to how they're sharing it with the county. What spaces are looking like, where they're deficient, where there might be ADA or code related issues, where they're not quite meeting best practices in law enforcement design today. And that was part of the study we did. We conducted some staff surveys. Not only did we collect information from department leadership, but we also sent these surveys were sent out to everyone in the department in order to collect information from them. A lot of times, these are meetings that not everybody can be a part of. Some staff members did come in and out as we were talking about their individual areas of the department, but there's a lot of folks that work nights and can't be at these sorts of meetings. So being able to take some information from the staff is extremely helpful. Helps them feel like they've been part of the process and they've had a voice in the results, the findings. After we go through that process, we do what's called space programming, which is looking at determining how much space is needed for the department to operate, not only for today, if they had an idea, what they would need to operate today, ideally, but also looking out for growth. And we looked out for 30 years here to determine, what a long-term solution would look like. And then again, master planning, site test feasibility, and some cost estimating. And that was all wrapped up in our report to the police department and the city. So one of the things we were looking at was the potential for a location, and the property immediately across the street from the existing shared city county law enforcement facility was identified at least as a location for us to consider. It's got good arterial access, and there's a lot of interaction between the city and the county right now. So that not losing that synergy was also something that we saw as a benefit. So keep on going there. So when we looked at the existing facility, there's quite a few areas where the facility is deficient. So public wayfinding and safety, walking in the front door and trying to find the police department is pretty difficult. You've got to kind of meander your way down a hallway, and the lobby area is undersized. There's a really inadequate space to hold, any sort of sensitive conversations or provide sort of separation between offenders and witnesses. Frequently, you'll have victims and witnesses coming into a facility. At the same time, you might have a person of interest coming in to be interviewed. There's really no way to sort of handle that traffic. And there's no ballistic resistance at the public lobby reception or the records counter. So God forbid there be an incident where you'd be an active shooter would come in with a vendetta against the police department. There's no protection for the staff. It is a shared facility, as we all know. They share the entry. The police have outgrown the space that the county has been willing to give them, and there's no room for growth whatsoever. So let alone meeting best practices as far as the space provided. Getting into a little bit more of the operational space, the current meeting room is undersized. It really only fits about 20 or 24 people, and it also doubles as the EOC training and a variety of other functions. So there's not a lot of room for routine in-service training or response to serious events within the city. What they really need is a large-scale room. Over 50. We've really looked at the opportunity to bring in regional training so that the department does not need to travel and incur expenses to do that training. They can host regional training and receive some free training through that as well. It's also another opportunity for a good place for the city to be able to meet. So that would be a room that would be available for city meetings as well. There's only one soft interview room directly off the lobby with not really great acoustic separation. There's really no space for defensive tactics. And when we talk about defensive tactics, it's essentially the hand-to-hand training that that officers need to have in order to build that muscle memory and to be able to respond if they're put into a situation to defend themselves. So a mat room large enough for multiple groups of officers to spar against each other and have that physical hand-to-hand training is extremely important. So right now they've got to go off site to do that. Garage space is something that's non-existent. Right now, the cars, as you can see in that lower right photo, are just outside. And, that does, it's an unsecured lot. Anybody could walk back there from the surrounding site or from the front of the building. It's an area where cars could be vandalized. They're out in inclement weather. Sometimes the equipment in these cars costs more than the cars themselves. So protecting that sensitive equipment and even some of the medical supplies that are frequently stored in squad cars, it's important. So it's a good return on your investment to have a squad garage. Means less frequently replaced squad vehicles and fleet vehicles, if you can protect those from the elements as well as protecting the equipment that's inside of them. Lack of personnel space. There's a large room at the back that is currently the lunchroom and the briefing and roll call room and the locker room and tactical weapon storage and officers' files. Everything is happening in that one space, and they are out of room. There's no dedicated break room. Like I said, it's happening right there in that same space. And there is a little bit of space, as we all know, up in the upper Midwest, there's going to be inclement weather. There's no space if you're stuck to be able to catch a nap, or if you've got morning court to be able to come off a night shift and get a couple hours of sleep. There's no really ability to do that. Right now, they've got a Barca lounger in the same room that has the server equipment. It's the only place for it to go. So it's noisy and it's hot, and it's not really suitable. We can go to the next one. Lack of storage space. It's pretty much where they can find space to put things they have, and they are out of space. Whether it be files and records or, patrol equipment, things like body cams and radios and flashlights, everything is stored wherever they can find space. There's a garage where some items are stored, but it's that garage really should be used for evidentiary vehicle processing purposes. And it's right now it's full and cannot serve that purpose. There's no dedicated armory space that is secure and access controlled. And really no place. Some of the new things that we're seeing in cyber forensics and drones and the technology overlay that is really important for the way police departments operate right now. There's really no space or room for that kind of technology to be accommodated. We've got a lot of indoor air quality concerns. It's fairly musty in the building. There's some really critical areas where this is important, and that's really evidence processing. They bring a lot of things in that could be toxic or harmful, and there's not a good ventilation to be able to process that evidence in a safe way. So exhaust and fume hoods for extraction of those things. Weapons cleaning area is an area that can become very, very fragrant, if you will, and that's requires some good exhaust. And then ventilation in locker room, shower rooms to control humidity and odors. It's pretty it's not in great shape. So with that understanding, collecting information from the staff and the officers, and looking at the existing facility, we looked at programming for the facility. So again, we were planning for at least 30 years. And when I say 30 years, that doesn't mean the building is going to become obsolete at year 30. That just means that it's kind of the right fit. If the department grows as they might expect to, that point is just the perfect fit. If they grow a little fast, perfect fit happens a little sooner. If they grow a little slower, the perfect fit happens a little later. That doesn't necessarily mean that the building's obsolete at that point. These buildings are meant to last for 50 or more years nowadays. These are big investments, and the taxpayers need to see a good value for that. And the city shouldn't be expected to have to, construct another building, in 30 years. So it's just not what we're talking about. 21 squad garage is what we determined. That is all the fleet vehicles that need to remain undercover. Dedicated police training facilities, both classroom and hand-to-hand defensive tactical training. Functions to support health and wellness. There is a wellness room. There's a spot for officers to decompress within the department, but you can always do more. Spaces like mother's rooms, the decompression space for officers that have had a tough call that they need a moment to gather their thoughts. meet with, potentially behavioral health and social workers. These are all things that are common and standard in police facilities nowadays that are just not available in the current facility. Talked a little bit about the 100-person community room that can serve not only for community functions, but in-service training, city meetings, as well as to be able to stand up a proper emergency operations center should it be required. Dedicated soft interview rooms with physical and acoustical separation from the public, and appropriate evidence processing and storage. Right now, it's fairly short. So the building right now, including the dedicated parts of the building that are only dedicated to the Menomonie Police Department, is about 9,600 square feet. And there's about 3,000 square feet of county functions. So we've got about 12,000 square feet available right now. Again, we looked at current 20-year and 30-year staffing, and then the corresponding current 20 and 30-year space needs. It's a fairly modest growth for the department. Where we saw the growth really was in some of the records and administrative staff. Some of the growth there from the sort of the administrative support services side were things like additional social worker, additional behavioral health, those sorts of things. In investigations, we were looking at crime analysts and other cyber forensics professionals to kind of respond to the technology that's needed. These, so it was a relatively modest growth. There was some growth in patrol, about 6 there. Say growth in patrol, growth in sworn staff doesn't always mean more and more office space. Sometimes it just means they need another locker in the locker room. And those lockers are the office essentially of the patrol officer. So having a few more lockers in the locker room to accommodate that growth is good prudent planning. So you can see we were looking at the difference between today's need and the 30-year need is only about 3,000 square feet difference. And that does accommodate this staff growth that we've seen here. So it's relatively, less than 10% growth over your building's 10% bigger to accommodate 30 plus years of growth. If you scroll down to the bottom there, David, so the resulting, I'm going to consider both the shared and the dedicated. Only 30% of the space is currently provided in the current facility, despite the need that's been identified. So we can continue on here. So from a master planning standpoint, again, we were looking at the piece of property immediately across the street from the current LEC. We looked at 3 options. The first one, they were all single-story buildings. And, this looks like a fairly large piece of property, but as you've all been out there, that site well. There is a lot of grade change from the road down to that piece of property. So without a lot of work on the site, not as much of that site is actually available for use. So in most of all of these, in all of these, the footprint of the building, it was really pushed to the north as much as we could, while still providing some buffer space and some standoff distance from public roadways and parking, handling, planning ahead for some stormwater. And one of the other important things is planning for some expansion over long term, because what happens when the building, runs out of space in 50 years? Do you want to build a new building? If not, if you don't have to, if we can plan appropriately and plan for some expansion space that could happen later, that really extends the lifespan of your building. So when we look at these test fits, you'll see public parking, very separate from the staff parking. Staff parking should be secure, again, to protect staff vehicles and any fleet vehicles that are outside from vandalism. So public parking on the front, staff parking in the rear, and a secure lot, some room for expansion. We talked about a little bit of cold storage space to put some of the storage functions outside that don't require climate controlled in potentially in a less expensive structure. And then there's access to things like the short-term holding area, the fleet garage, and those sorts of things off the back as well. So this has the public entry off of Stokey Parkway. Again, staff parking in the fenced area, and it does allow for expansion. This does, Stokey's can be a little bit congested with all the things coming and going. So this was one option we looked at. Let's look at the next one, option 2. This one, again, brought you brought the public entrance off of Stokey, but it had a central entry, and all the public functions like the community room and the lobbies and all those sorts of things could be more focused towards the corner of 12 and Stokey. So really forward facing the public functions to where the public are coming from, and really reinforcing that openness to the public. So there's again, this project, there's allowed the parking to be in a secure lot, still had some room for expansion there in the southwest. And generally this worked well as well. If we go to the next one, this was the preferred option. This had public access from the north, provided a little bit more of a gradual approach to the building with the topography that we have. A little bit, it's not impossible, but it's a little more challenging when you're coming from Stokey into the site, as we talked about. Strong presence along the roadway, a lot of really public facing aspects of the building towards 12. Building footprint allows for some good buffer space and from the roadways. Again, staff parking, everything's in the secure lot. And then again, we're really focusing on that expansion and leaving enough room to grow over time. So this is just one example. And again, there's many more iterations of design to explore how this might actually work. So in looking at the cost, I would say, these are big numbers as you've looked at the information in your packet. One of the things that's extremely important is providing an appropriately designed, durable, long-term solution for the city and for the police department. Again, spending this kind of money is, you want to result in something that the city and the residents are going to be proud of, and something that's going to last for an extremely long time. So having the necessary space for them to operate and not run out of space early is important. Having appropriate, dignified space that reinforces the department's mission, wellness initiatives, and provides a good working environment is extremely important. When we consider most departments, there's a lot of lateral transfers that come from one department to the next. These things also are aspects of recruiting and retention. You spend a lot of money training your police officers, and the goal is to keep them long-term for the department, rather than losing them to a neighboring jurisdiction. So having good facilities that are going to be built for a very long time, it does require an investment. So these cost estimates are based on a rough order of magnitude using historical, like I said early on, historical data from us doing these kinds of projects frequently and over a long period of time, as well as testing the market and seeing what the construction costs in the area are. There's two categories here. There is hard cost and soft cost. The hard cost is everything that it takes to actually physically construct the building. The soft costs are everything that is required that doesn't result directly in the building. It's things like hiring and paying for architect and engineers, doing a survey, doing some geotechnical exploration of what the qualities of the soil so you can design the foundations properly, permits, furniture, specialty equipment, all the things that if you turn the building upside down and shook it and they fall out, those are the things that fall into soft cost. So those are two very important things that make up the budget. The other thing that we also include is a contingency early on, because we haven't, as architects, we haven't drawn a building yet. We don't have anything defined other than space. So, there's a lot of unknowns at this point. So we keep a little bit of contingency in there to, again, give you a budget that will be able to accommodate the building that the department deserves. And then lastly, escalation is very important. Right now it's about 5% per year. We're a lot better off than we were 4 years ago when we were looking at 20% escalation during the pandemic. But it's kind of back down to that normal 4 or 5% range year upon year. So, right now, since we've estimated this and we're talking to you tonight in 2025, we've included escalation out for 1 year. If you were to immediately, be able to move a project forward, the earliest it would bid would be in 2026. So this is reflective of that. If you were to look out year after year, you would continue to see that 4 or 5% adding on every single year. So there's a definite real impact to waiting too terribly long, because today is the cheapest this building would ever be built. So you take the hard costs, soft costs, contingencies, the escalation, and that's what ultimately results in a project that is somewhere between probably 28.5 and $30.5 million. We go to the next slide. So really the next steps at this point, our work is concluded. And we've been very grateful and fortunate to work with the city and the police department up to this point. But right now, really the decisions are in your hands. Looking at financial options and working with staff to determine what the path can and should be, that really is what falls on the government body from this point forward. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Good. Well, thank you, Paul, for all the information. I guess, one of the concerns I always have is inadequacy of our police department. Where it falls. I know we share a space with the sheriff's department and so forth and so on. But at the same time, there's a certain continuity with the sheriff and the police working tightly together. How would you compare the inequity versus the positive aspects of this if we were to put a building like this away from them? The nice thing is we're in still close proximity with the courthouse and with the jail and the other services. I guess my question to you would be, do you feel there's enough strong inequities being bound together that this is something we should seriously be looking at in the near future? Or do you think in the next 7 years, the way we are working it now, we could still cohabitate and still function as we are? But is there some serious inequities?
In my opinion, I believe that there are. The building is deficient now by 70% of what they really need to do the job the right way. That's only going to get worse, as you move forward in time. We know that the county is out of space as well. They would love to have the space that the police department occupies right now. So I think there's some good benefits for the county to be able to absorb the space that the police department is in, as well as giving the city's police department a proper home, if you will.
Good. I know when Eric came on 12, 13 years ago as a police chief, we had talked back then, what are the needs of the police department, how as mayor can I serve your needs the best and so forth and so on. And we had this same conversation as space was one of the most important factors. I know that, a weight room, different things out there. A place for a foosball table. There are certain things that, every police station should have, of course. But in all seriousness, when our vehicles are outside and it's 30 below, or you've got, a first aid kit and you go to use it and it's frozen and things of that nature, there's a lot of things there that we probably as citizens don't realize. And that's where, we depend on people like you, we depend on the knowledge that Eric has as a past police chief, our current police chief and other officers that they bring forward. And we really take an evaluation. I know it's a lot of money, but if you spread that $30 million out over, 25 years or so, it's palatable. And for a city of our size with the industry that we've got going on, I think it's something that as a mayor that, I ask Eric to take a look at this, hence bringing you forward and so forth. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Eric and maybe there's questions from the council or whatever. Eric?
I do have a question for you. So not too long ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, the city council authorized the building of a community services building, which is houses our street department and their vehicles and some of their offices. And it's somewhat similar size and space or a little bit bigger. The cost of that one was around $5-6 million. Other than inflation, which obviously that has an impact, can you explain the difference between like a tip-up structure that would be utilized for community services versus like a public safety building, like a police department?
Sure. Well, I'd say, the public works or community services, service type buildings, they need to be durable as well, but the quality of the space is extremely different. Yes, there is going to be some office space, but there's also going to be a lot of shop space and big open space for storage vehicles. And that is a different kind of a building that just costs a different cost per square foot. You know, a tip up building, I've done them for police buildings. But I will tell you that the way you outfit a police building with all of the interior functions and the heavy interior construction, the holding areas, the technology, you know, it's just different. It's a different level of quality for, you know, for than even a city hall building or, you know, frankly, even a fire station in in a lot of ways. There's just a difference to it. So, you know, when we look at establishing the space needs for these, I should have made this point earlier. You know, it's not just us listening and just writing down, and it's not just a wish list. It really is us, you know, lending our expertise as to what is standard in the industry. So, you know, we certainly do listen, and we certainly want to create a functional program that is going to meet the unique needs of this department. But we're also going to push back and say, well, that's not really that typical. Tell me about why this is different. Pardon me, different for Menomonie. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we want a defensible, credible program and budget that you all can believe in, as well as that you can support to your constituents. I mean, this is a lot of money, and so you have to be confident and comfortable in the direction of the project, so that you can speak again to your constituents and feel comfortable that, you know, you're making the best decisions for them as well. Does that help answer your question?
Indeed, it does. Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to council. If there's questions, Matthew, you got a hand up.
Oh yeah, thanks for putting this together. This is excellent. Do you have any data on how much it would cost to operate and maintain a building like this, and how much more efficient a newer building would be with LED lights, newer HVAC system, all that stuff?
You know, we didn't take that deep dive. I've done that numerous times. You know, it's certainly something we can look at if that's, you know, desired of the council. An operational estimate takes into account not only utility expenses, but routine maintenance and, you know, the sort of deferred maintenance that comes up over time, as well as sometimes it's even, you know, how much is the lease on that copier going to be for the next 20 years? You know, how much, you know, are we going to have to spend on the utilities? How much are we going to, do we need to hire a janitor? Do we need to hire custodial staff? You know, so there's all kinds of different things you could look at. And that's certainly something I'm happy to help with if it's desired.
Rylan?
I guess one thing that always kind of surprises me is that it's a single floor story building. Whereas I should hope that our police officers are all able-bodied and can use a set of stairs, and that a two-story building would be a much smaller footprint, and is a lot more efficient to heat and cool, and I would assume cheaper to build as well, and yet it's not any of the options on the table.
Well, I would say that it's not necessarily cheaper to build because you will have to pay for the stairs and the elevator. You're buying an elevated concrete slab instead of more elevated roof, which is more expensive to build. So there are certainly aspects which can push it to be a little bit more expensive than a single story building. Your points on energy efficiency and the cost of heating and cooling, it's valid. I would look at this operationally though, and one of the things we look at is who needs to be next to who to be in order to do their best work. And this department is, I've certainly done smaller buildings in two-story buildings, but this building and the culture of the department and the way they operate and the way they interact really does sort of encourage a single-story building, because there is a lot of interaction between administration, investigations, and patrol, and you know, the people that end up going upstairs typically are administration and investigations in a two-story building, and that really does cut them off from the folks that they're trying to lead and work with. So, you know, most of the time when I move to a two-story solution in a building this size or even smaller, it's because the property is either too expensive or unavailable. So you really are limited in parcel size, and that really does usually drive the decision to push to a two-story. You go up to a 60, 70, 80,000 square foot building, twice the size, then more times than not, we're looking at a two-story building.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering because, like, seems like, you know, gym and conference room and, those areas that wouldn't need to be used for networking,
Mhm.
that you don't need to have your office right next to the conference room necessarily, because,
Right.
well, but yeah, it just seems like you're looking at the space going, well, how can we fill this up?
Yeah. There's a good part of this is the fleet garage. So if you were to take the fleet garage and consider that separately, still important in our opinion, in this climate, the remaining size of the building is actually, fairly small. So it's maybe 2/3 of that overall square footage.
Then my other question was, how many of the issues like vehicle vandalism and so on are you looking for a solution for that we haven't had? Like, has that been an issue here? Or are you saying, well, just in case we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll do this and
Mhm.
or are you actually fixing legitimate issues?
I, I I get this complaint almost, and I work across the country. So one of the benefits I have is I see a lot of departments all over the place. I would let the chief speak to some of their experiences firsthand, but it is a complaint. It is something we see time and time again, and it is a best practice to enclose that garage or that enclose the back parking lot and protect not only the fleet and the staff's personal vehicles. Um, but certainly the fence could be constructed later if there was a budget issue, but it's again, best practice, national standard is I would always advocate for that separation to protect the investment of the equipment and the people.
Oh, quick question, on this particular site, if we decided that, down the road, we wanted to have not only a police station, but also a fire station in the same location, would this site provide enough space for both those two units?
Absolutely.
That's one of the concerns that I have, and Eric and I have talked about. That's what we've been looking at different sites around the city for quite a while. And I know, a fire department out in that growing area of town might be something that we might want to consider in the future.
Mhm.
Right now, of course, your space needs came to the police department, but Gretchen?
Considering this site, and noting that, depression and whatnot, how it's laid out, are we worried about any potential instability in portion of it, or is it pretty consistent that you
It-
know of?
We would have to look at geotechnical exploration and just double checking, the qualities of the site. Where the road and the slopes of the dirt leading down to the developable part of the site it's not a huge concern to me.
Okay, and if we were to need to make a change, how flexible are we with, like, if we decide on option 3 or whichever was recommended, and it's not, geologically going to work, then is that process?
That's a whole, this is just to kind of get the idea of cost and if we need one and space study, that you're talking a whole nother ballgame
Yeah.
of where we go from here kind of thing.
And did we, I mean, we probably didn't, that would be more in the more detailed architectural plans, but things like if we have an enclosed parking lot, well, so there was the garage for the fleet vehicles, but then there's also the employee parking.
Right.
Like things like solar panels over the employee parking lot and
Mhm.
things like that would be in the more detailed.
Yeah,
Yep.
and those are all very feasible. Sometimes the solar can come with incentives or with local companies that are willing to help install those, and there's sharing of the energy savings.
Oh, and it helps
Um,
with like snow plowing and stuff because it's not landing.
We do a lot of solar ready buildings where you can install the panels on the roof at a later date, and make it easy to do that. I did want to come back to your comment on the fire station. We do a lot of fire stations as well. And we do a lot of programming and construction of joint facilities. And there can be some cost savings. Culturally, we have to look and see what are the spaces that could be shared, whether it be a workout space or, meeting rooms or training functions. Typically we can save some square footage and some dollars when you compare two separate facilities versus one put together. So that could be an option if you're already considering doing a fire station, saving a little bit to do them together as one structure.
Well, and I think that was the space that, that I was looking at out there, because if we ever needed to do that, we'd have enough
Mhm.
room to put the both together. So, for me, I think I appreciate you being here, Paul. I don't know if there's anything else that, any other questions? David, do you have anything to add to that? Eric?
No, I appreciate the presentation and the effort that was put into it.
Yeah.
It's given us much to consider.
Yeah, we've appreciated the opportunity to be of service. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on with the rest of our meeting, under 4B, proposed ordinance 2025-02, amending Title 6, Chapter 4, Section 11 of the City Code to allow on-street day permit parking on certain areas. I know the parking utility had talked about this several times, and at the last meeting, the parking utility has kind of decided that this is the best practice for what we need. Quite often, there was individuals that'd be working downtown, for instance, that would have to run out and plug the meter and then run back into work and then run out and plug the meter, and okay, now I'm off and, oh, I'm gonna run for a while and then come back and, oh, now I don't have a parking spot, but well, I could park over here at this parking lot, but then, so there's all kinds of different views on this. However, one of the things that was brought to our attention was the ability to have day permits on certain meters in town, and that would require them paying a certain fee for the day permit, parking in designated day permit areas. And it started out in a small little spot on Crescent Street along the lake bank. And then once we started talking about it, we was like, well, this is an underutilized parking area for cars. Perhaps we should allow day parking here. And then it kind of got bigger and bigger. And this is our best proposal, I think, put forward by the parking utility to this body. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Eric to fill in any gaps I may have missed. Eric?
Thank you, Mayor. So there's been some concerns on a couple levels that this actually could help our parking situation in our downtown. So we did have concerns about people being able to park close by or within reasonable distances of businesses that they worked in, or going to school with our permits. And traditionally, they've been in our regular municipal lots for our day parking permits. One of the other concerns that has been brought up is a lack of overnight parking, and we have a considerable number of day parking permits in these lots. So we did an analysis and taking a look at what we're actually utilizing for the parking meters in some of these locations. And we found that a lot of them were greatly underutilized. Or in the case of the one by the 300 block of Crescent, there are a lot of the employees from Estio or the Silver Dollar, and then they're having to run out and plug them. So the parking utility has been exploring these options for probably the better part of about 6 months, 7 months. And what they have recommended to this body is those areas marked in orange. Those are all parking. They all have parking meters in those spaces. What they recommended is changing our ordinance to allow persons that do have a day parking permit to be able to park in those metered spaces. Those metered spaces would still remain metered. So if you do not have a parking permit, you could still plug the meter and park there as much as our ordinances allow. But if you do have that day parking permit, then we know that you can park in those areas, and we would sign those spaces too as well. So we would make it obvious for our constituents as to where they want to park. Going down towards that Wilson Avenue, you see the 300 block, 400 block, and 500 block. Now that 300 block, it's used a fair amount for the meters. The other blocks do not. 400 and 500 are underutilized. However, we also know that Stout is going to be doing some significant construction in that area. And so we recognize an opportunity for us to be able to help our partners out at Stout while also capitalizing on the ability of being able to capture these day parking permits, thus freeing up some of our municipal lots to allow for greater overnight parking, in particular in the area on the west side. So people who are living above the Marion or living above Mike's Art Supply in those areas now will have greater access to overnight parking. So anyway, what's in front of you? I gave you a big, long, convoluted explanation for something that's fairly simple, is to allow people that have those day parking permits to park in those orange areas. Last thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet. On that 100 block of Sixth Avenue East, that is in all likelihood going to be a temporary thing because once we get approved for that jurisdictional rescission of moving that main street or that highway onto that Sixth Avenue, we'll have to look at doing something different because that intersection and that roadway is going to need some construction to accommodate for that change. But overall, staff has looked at what the parking utility has recommended and recommends approving this. And I see David's got his green light on and would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I wanted to note, the 500 block of South Broadway and the 100 block of Sixth Avenue East. We did the credit card readers that we had on our old meters. We could actually drill down to the exact meter. We actually lost money on the 500 block of South Broadway. We paid more each month to actually have that meter there than we collected in people parking there. So, you know, that 500 block, I think, was probably one of the blocks that really started this discussion. Is there a better way to use the parking in that block? And first, the 100 block of Sixth Avenue East was another one that is very underutilized. So.
Good point.
Well, and this is something that as Eric alluded to, you know, there might be some changes in the future. But I think going into this, I think these are the best use of not only the meters, the day permits, the night permits, opening up some of the lots for that, and allowing some of the workers that are working that, you know, can pay the extra money and get a day permit versus running out to their car, vice versa. So I think it's got a lot of a lot of positive energy moving forward. So, Chad, you got your mic on?
I'm just curious, what prevents, if they have a day pass and they're parked, is there any way to prevent them from leaving their car there for 6 months in the wintertime?
Oh, yeah. Yep. There's a 24-hour duty. And also you can't be parked there overnight. You know, they would have to move it. They could park it there in the morning from 7 o'clock. What is it? 7 to 4? What's the
Yeah,
daytime?
they're gonna have to be, you got both the 24-hour parking rules, so a vehicle has to move every 24 hours. And then the other part is that they have to have that area vacated late in the morning in order to have street cleaning and other things. So that 4 to 7 period of time, they're supposed to be out of there. Now, if you have a vehicle that is parked in that space violating 24-hour, they can the police, being they can hang a parking ticket on it. If they're leaving the vehicle during times where we need to clean, we can tow, do a ticket and tow on the vehicle. We got a variety of options to prevent someone from deciding that they want to camp out at one of those spaces. And sometimes even without this, that'll happen where the PD gets a vehicle that might become abandoned on the street, or someone just decides they don't want to move it for whatever reason.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, if anybody would like to support this with a
Mr.
motion?
Mayor, my hand's up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that, Lee. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. Are the meters going to remain? I'm asking that because I probably don't want one of these permits, but if I'm downtown and still want to park out and wherever and put a couple quarters in, can I do that?
Yes, sir. The meters will stay there. They will just get assigned appropriately in those areas that if they want to pay the meter, they can, or if they've got a day permit, that would be allowable.
Okay, thank you. I feel more comfortable about it.
Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, again, if anybody would like to support this with a motion, we can do so at this time. Oh, we need to do it's an ordinance change. I'm sorry. So if anybody would like to introduce this, we could do an introduction at this time. Chad, go ahead.
I'd like to introduce ordinance 2025-02.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we need to waive the rules. If you'd like to make a motion to waive the first reading, go ahead, Ryland.
Yep, I would make a motion to waive the rules or
Waive the first.
waive the first reading.
Very
Sorry.
good. Motion made. Gretchen?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And then if you want to make a motion to waive the second reading, you can do that. Matthew?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to waive the second reading.
Very good. Is there a second? Jeff, go ahead.
I'll second Matthew's motion.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, if Chad, do you want the option to make the motion to adopt said ordinance since you introduced it?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-02, an ordinance amending Title 6, Chapter 4, Section 11 of the City Code to allow on-street day parking permit parking in certain areas.
That's a good motion. Thank you. Anybody, Matthew, go ahead.
Yes, I'll second Chad's motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to 4C. Proposed ordinance 2025-03, amending Title 1, Chapter 9, Section 1A of the City Code to extend the deadline for submitting the annual budget to council to October 31st of each year. Discussion and introduction, possible waiver, et cetera. There's a part of this that's important to, this ordinance was put in place years and years and years ago. And sometimes the information we get from the state doesn't come along quite as fast as it needs to. There's some other elements too. I think it's good to have a date on it because it does hold administration and this body to feet to the fire. But we do need some extended time to be able to put those numbers together. And Eric, I'm going to turn the mic over to you and you can explain it in detail. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. So in October, typically administration and the mayor will present a draft budget to the city council. By ordinance, it's supposed to be presented to you by October 15th. Typically, that draft gets to you on that second meeting in October, and sometimes that carries over past that October 15th. We want to make sure that we are keeping in line with our city ordinance, and that's why we're recommending the amendment by moving that date to October 31st. So that allows that either the draft budget can be submitted on that first meeting in October or in that second meeting in October on typically that third week. So it hasn't ever been a real big issue, but I think we should want to make sure that we follow our ordinances accordingly. Ben Ludeman helped draft up the ordinance, and we're hoping this body supports that change.
Just cutting it close every year and it's a little bit extra pressure that we could avoid. So that's the reason for this. If anybody would like to support this, we could do so with an introduction and go on from there. Gretchen.
I'll introduce ordinance 2025-03, ordinance amending section 191A of the city code to change the date of the proposed budget. Submitted to the common council by October 31st.
Thank you for the introduction. If anybody would like to make a motion to waive the first reading, you can do so at this time. Chad,
I'd like to make a motion to waive the first reading.
Mary,
I will second Chad's motion.
motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody want to make a motion to waive the second reading? Jeff,
I make a motion to waive the second reading.
is there a second to that motion? Rylan,
I'll second Jeff's motion.
motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. And Gretchen, would you like to make the motion to adopt said ordinance?
Yep, I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance 2025-03, ordinance amending section 1-9-1A of the city code to change the date of the proposed budget. To change the date the proposed budget is to be submitted to the common council by.
Okay, and do we need the date on there? October 31st. Good motion. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Mary,
I would second Gretchen's motion.
motion made and seconded. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Under 4D, proposed appointment of Zariah Whitaker as the communication specialist. Zariah is here this evening and we'd like to introduce her to the council. Zariah, if you'd come up to the podium, and tell us a little bit about you and what you're excited to do for the city, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you for having me today. Well, I'm Zariah Whitaker. I am from Eau Claire, but I've been working in Menomonie for the last 2.5 years at Landmark Conservancy as their communication specialist. So doing lots of communicating in that realm. I also have a degree in digital marketing and grant writing from Chippewa Valley Technical College. I have worked at the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce. I worked at Parks and Rec in Eau Claire when I was in college, including Taco Bell and WEAU 13 News all at the same time, and the student library. So used to wearing many hats, juggling many things, but I'm very excited to bring a lot of positivity and excitement to this role, getting to continue to develop the communications program and yeah, being of service to the city, which is a great place to work and play. So
Well,
thank
that's
you.
awesome. Well, good pitch. Good place to work and play and live, by the way.
Oh, and live. Yeah, I live on the west side of Eau Claire, so it's just a hop and a skip. But yeah, I really enjoy getting to also.
Well, we're going to expect you to move even closer, perhaps in the city. Now, in doing certain things, I know, a lot of times there's grant writing that has to be done in a certain way and publications and all kinds of things. And I know you've had some experience in a lot of direction. How do you feel that working with our staff on some of those necessary evils, will be in dealing with day-to-day, everyday working, around the building and so forth?
Yeah. Well, I think having nonprofit experience, I've heard can be very similar to government experience. Like I said, wearing many hats and always recognizing the importance of flexibility, communication, and understanding too that everyone has lots of things on their plate. And so, yeah, having things clearly laid out in those project plans and really meeting it with excitement where things can be it's fun to see things come to fruition, right? Like love getting to hold things in my hand, whether it's a pretty postcard or a newsletter or a nice infographic. But getting to see that final product is always something rewarding. So even though it's maybe a necessary evil, it's also, I think it can be fun.
Well, and I expect a lot out of you, and I know we do on our staff, of course. But we have the Menomonie Minute here tonight, and she does an outstanding job for the city in portraying some of the news items that happens at City Hall. So one of the things that I would expect that one of your job duties would be to take some of the news that's happening in the city of Menomonie and sharing it with like the Menomonie Minute or other postings, I don't know, Facebook and whatever else that we've got going on out there. But I know that's probably one of your specialties. You've had a lot of experience in that. So I appreciate your abilities. I know you came highly recommended by Eric, and I'm going to let Eric talk to you for a minute. Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. Zariah, real quick, could you inform the council what drew you here to the city of Menomonie? Like what made you want to apply? And then the second thing is, what are you looking forward to doing first if you are approved by the council?
Yes, if approved by the council, fingers crossed. Well, what drew me to apply was I really have loved working in Menomonie the last 2.5 years with Landmark Conservancy. As a part of that organization, if you're not familiar, they work in 20 counties across Northwest Wisconsin. They permanently protect land, but they also engage community. And they do that by having various events, whether it's birding events or pulling garlic mustard out at Kyle Birch Creek. And I think really getting to be more connected to community and especially somewhere, where I frequent was really important to me. Working in 20 counties, that can be hard to feel connected to the people on the ground doing the work in the community. So getting to engage with all sorts of different people across the city really drew me to this role. And some of the first things, today actually at Landmark, as I'm wrapping up my last week there, it's Merch Monday, something that I instituted there. So something fun is just, people will wear different merch and taking pictures of them with the merch, repping it, getting people to get excited. I think just building that brand awareness and where, maybe people have a certain perspective of what the city does or who they are, but getting to understand that the city is a resource and really great people work here and getting to share that through different facets is something I'm looking forward to doing first and continuing to do.
Thank you.
Good. Well, good. Well, thank you. I don't know if there's a lot of questions. I know I want to keep this meeting moving. When you talk about the city of Menomonie, I get compliments all the time on the Welcome to Menomonie City signs, our wayfinding signs, our flower baskets downtown, our just the way Menomonie presents itself. And so I think continuing that forward in the digital world and letting people know more about what we do and how we do it, and being available so that people can go on the Menomonie website and find the resources they need, if it's a dog license or if it's a whatever it is. So I think it's pretty exciting, and I'm pretty excited to have you here to joining the crew. And I would invite any council member that if they'd like to entertain a motion at this time, that they could do so. Matthew, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the appointment of Zariah Whitaker to the position of Communications Specialist with the City of Menomonie.
Okay, thank you. Is there Gretchen?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Relations.
Okay, moving on. No budget transfers tonight. Mayor's report. I have just a real quick mayor's report, and that is that we are going to have a festivity at Wolski's Bay Island Saturday. Weather should be perfect. There it is. And a couple things that are pretty cool is Menomonie Transportation is going to donate bus shuttle from the boat landing to Wolski's Bay from I think it's 4 till 9. The hot cocoa will be provided by Conagra Swiss Miss. We'll have volunteers down there. If you want to volunteer yourself for different things, come on down, pour hot chocolate, hang out with the kids, help them with their ice skates. Should be a great event. Looking forward to it. The Chamber of Commerce was going to send out a invite to the different businesses via email. And then this has also been posted on Facebook and so forth. So we should have a great turnout. It's kind of winds down the year at Wolski's Bay for the lights and the skating and everything else. And we've had a great year so far. The one thing nice about skating on the lake, we don't have to flood it. It floods itself, the ice freezes, and we're good to go. However, when the ice gets beat up, Jeff Peterson comes down, drills a hole in the ice, pumps water, fresh water on the ice, and does flood it. So it does maintain. So he'll be out there flooding, I'm sure, Friday or Thursday, Friday, to make the ice elegant. And he bought a bunch of candles, so he's planning on putting candles out alongside of it. So if you get a chance, come on down Saturday or anytime you get a chance to come down and do some skating. They had 350 little tiny tots skating at Winter Wonderland last weekend. I mean, it was like they had the rink divided into 3 or 4 small rinks, and the little tots were out there, and it was packed all day from 7 in the morning till nighttime. It was crazy, crazy busy. So I really appreciate the council supporting those 2 rinks. I know that we don't always have the other rinks in town, but there's a lot of amenities. I don't know, Dave, maybe you can speak on what these rinks have that the other rinks may not have.
Yeah, historically, we've managed about 4 rinks around the city. Obviously, there used to be a rink across the street here at Wilson Park. We had one at the fire station. We had one at Wakanda Elementary years ago. And then the one over in Half Moon Park near Park Circle. This year, particularly Park Circle, we didn't get enough snow cover to really flood that until about 2 weeks ago. And then we got a 50-degree day last Thursday. So, the ability afforded by Wolski Bay and by Christmas Miracle has really been appreciated. The last 2 years, we really wouldn't have had ice, but for those 2 facilities.
Thank you, David. The other thing I really like is we have a lot of toys down at Wolski's Bay that kids can push around. The Flintstone Mobile, the kids use it so much they wore the steering wheel off. So I don't know how that works, but and also warming houses and skates, compliments of American Edge. So there's just a lot of positives to this. So if you get a chance, come on down and enjoy the festivities next Saturday, and you'll have a great time. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Eric and go around the horn. Thanks.
I don't have a whole lot to update. We're working behind the scenes with Ellers on trying to make a determination on what our final capital improvement proposal will be to bring forward to council for consideration, and be looking forward to that either at the next meeting in February or the first one in March. That's all I have. Let's go around.
Kate?
We have an election in 2 weeks and 1 day, folks. So make sure you vote. You can come in and vote in my office starting tomorrow. So come in and get your votes in before Election Day. And so far we have enough election workers. So I won't bend your ear about trying to volunteer this time.
Thank you, Kate. Going around the room, Gretchen? No? No? Jeff Luther? Say anything? David, go ahead.
Yeah, I have in your packet a memo, no action is needed tonight regarding the two-lane two-way left turn lane on Stout Road last year. About this time, I provided an update just after that first year of action. And this is another one here. So we have found from 2017 to 2019, that 3-year period versus 2023 and 2024, a 65% reduction in total number of crashes. That's a pretty substantial reduction. We saw in that 2017 to 2019 period, a lot of situations where someone was in the left lane waiting to turn, and then somebody behind them didn't realize they were stopped or whatever and jutted into the right lane and either sideswiped someone who was there, or there was a rear end crash one way or the other. So a 65% reduction in total crashes and an 83% reduction in injury crashes. So the crashes that still do occur are significantly less injurious. So, so far, I think the numbers have borne out the council's decision on that project. I'll endeavor to update this again in a year, but I think if you can do one thing for me this year, if you could avoid getting on a crash on Stout Road, I would appreciate it. We don't want, just to keep the numbers good. You do it anywhere else you want, but just don't do it on Stout Road.
Hey, going around the room, Kevin? Ben? Randy? Rylan?
I just wanted to thank David for the information here on Stout Road, because I know personally it's a lot less stressful driving down, not having to weave left to right constantly. And yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I know a lot of the truckers appreciate the corners, that they don't have to worry about a car next to them when they're going around the corner. And I've had the people comment on how much quieter it is than the concrete. So I don't know. Chad?
I'm just curious, so what do we pay for rent for the police department?
Eric?
Currently, we're paying about $175,000 a year. And it's typically gets raised approximately the consumer price index, usually right around the August time when that's established. Yes, you're very welcome.
Mary?
Just a question on, should the police department building be built, say, for 32 million? Where do we get that money?
Well, there's a couple ways, you could put it out, bond it out and so forth and so on. But if we were going to really do this, I would want community support. And I would ask for maybe a referendum to support this. And if they don't support it that way, then at least I wouldn't feel so bad about saying, hey, we thought we needed it, but maybe we don't. So I think there's a few ways, and maybe there's other ways too, but Eric can maybe touch on that too. But I think if I was going to do it, if I was in the mayor's chair, I would probably say, okay, community, we're looking for a 30-year program, or maybe $1 million a year, and put it out as a referendum piece versus, and it's a tangible item. It's not like pie in the sky. It's a necessary thing versus, hey, we're gonna raise taxes, or we're gonna put a bonding, or because then I don't know if I feel. I mean, a lot of people from the community will appreciate it. But I think if it was me, I would say it's up to us to convince the community, to show them why it's needed, and then let them make the decision, because it takes the onus off a lot of the people that are in this room at that point. So yeah, I guess if I was going to do it, I would promote it that way. And I don't know, maybe there's a better way, but Eric, do you touch on that at all?
Well, I think you're in line, Mayor. So we have an ordinance on our books right now that if we're going to be doing a project that's over $10 million, it requires a referendum. And I believe that ordinance was passed about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago when that was adjusted. The previous cap was about $5 million. So we would have to take that into consideration. The other thing is that there's been some state law changes as to how you can finance some of these. Before, in the past, we would have had to focus in on taking out bonds to do that, to specifically narrow it. Now we can actually take out notes instead and have 20-year notes versus limiting the notes. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility when it comes to interest rates. So we have that option. So there's a variety of ways that we can look at financing it. Should this council want to endeavor to do so. Other things to consider too is looking at existing buildings that may be able to be renovated. That could reduce costs too. Of course, it's location matters, how it could be renovated. And again, comes down to cost too as well. If it breaches that 10 million, then we have some discussion points to make. So there's a variety of things to take into consideration. We have a conversation that's scheduled with Ellers coming up. This is a topic that's going to come up so we can get some guidance as to what we can bring forward to the council here when we present the capital improvement projects. Because right now, if you remember in past CIP presentations, it's been listed as an out year type project where it's floating out there for consideration. So we can get some better direction. It was a great question you asked.
Well, and I didn't even think of the issue of anything over 10 million, but I remember when that was put in play 2-3 years ago. So
yeah,
again, but at least if it went to referendum, we'd know how the public would feel about it. So it would be up to us to say, this is a good project for Menomonie, do the best we can and let the people decide. So that would be my take on it from the get-go anyway. So anything else, Ben? No? Okay, we'd like to keep this meeting moving. So with that, we'll close down the communications, go on to claims. If somebody'd like to make a motion to pay the bills, we can do so at this time. Ryland.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to pay the claims list as presented.
Very good. Good motion. Is there a second to that motion? Jeff Luther.
I'll second Ryland's motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Crow,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Bianco,
Yes.
Schwebbs,
Yes.
Solberg,
Yes.
Schlü,
Yes.
Erdmann,
Yes.
Sommerfeld,
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
Very good. Goes down to licenses. 9A, application for combination Class B beer and Class B liquor license from B Californian Nunez LLC, 334 Main Street. And Guillermo is here this evening. If we have any questions, we can certainly talk about that. Otherwise, Kate? And can you explain what type of liquor license that is and if they've had it before and how the transfer, is it within family, et cetera?
Yeah, so this is not, it's technically a new license, but not a new license. Guillermo is applying to take over for this family business. Burrito California, as you probably all know it, on Main Street. He is proposing to change the name to B California, as it's fondly known from some of his regulars. And it's a combination Class B license, so it's Class B liquor and Class B beer, which is what they currently hold there. So not a whole lot of change necessarily, other than who's on the paperwork. So
Okay, and I think, it's been well served. We haven't had any instances down there. They're not like packing the house full of people drinking alcohol. If people want to have a beer, they certainly can. If you'd like to waive the rules, I think Guillermo would like to come up and speak. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to waive the rules, we could do so at this time. Ryland, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would make a motion to waive the rules.
Is
so
there a second
Guillermo
to-
would come up?
Thank you. Is there a second, Chad?
Like the second
Motion-
motion?
Motion made and seconded to waive the rules. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Come on up to the microphone, Guillermo. I know you want to, I know you really want to talk, so turn your microphone on and
Hi guys, hi everybody. I've been living in Menomonie for by 2007, and we survived recessions, pandemics, everything the business survived. Thanks for the community. I got a really good friends during the pandemic. They give us some help with this money to help out my business, and I want to say thank you for everybody. I know Randy for a long time, and I don't want it to be like another bar. Basically, my business over there is food. If the permit is like 10 o'clock, it's okay. I don't want to sell liquor overnight there. My basic business is sell burritos, sell food, and pretty much that. If I can sell it during the day and you can help me with that, I'll be fine with that. So, and got any questions, guys, or anything?
well, I appreciate Burrito California being downtown. It's a, people leave the bars. They need something to eat. It's open, great food and a great atmosphere. And I would support this. If anybody'd like to make a motion to support this, we could do so at this time. Ryland.
I would make a motion to approve the,
Class B liquor.
yes, the Class B beer and Class B liquor license for B California, 334 Main Street.
Okay, Randy?
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Guillermo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
guys.
for being here. Okay, moving down, do we have a normal license list?
Just a regular license.
Do you have some stuff? Okay, so the normal license list, if anybody'd like to make a motion to approve that, we can do so at this time. Randy?
I'll make a motion to approve the normal license list as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Ryla, Mary?
I will second Randy's motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Great. We have a problem tonight. We don't have anybody that's willing to make a motion to adjourn. Matthew?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? Jeff Luther?
I'll second.
Okay, motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. See you Saturday at the Skate-a-thon.